Welcome back to the Public Speaking Horror Show, where we slay fears, ditch the boring, and uncover what it really takes to be on stage. Today's guest is a powerhouse in leadership and coaching, someone who knows a thing or two about finding your voice and owning your worth, even when that little imposter voice tries to creep in. He is an executive coach for Wharton Business School, a sought-after international speaker, and a leadership whisperer to some of the biggest brands in the world, Google, Apple, Microsoft, and more. But he didn't just wake up one day as top leadership coach. Nope, he walked the walk, flipping burgers on Main Street to leading HR on Wall Street. With over 30 years of experience in Fortune 500 leadership, he has helped hundreds of high-achieving professionals turn imposter syndrome into their superpower and step fully into their potential. He's also the author of the award-winning book, Find Your Voice as a Leader. There it is. Awesome. Where he breaks down exactly how to lead with self-worth, self-reliance, and purpose. So if you've ever doubted your own success and felt like you weren't enough, or questioned if you truly belong at the table, you do. But buckle up, because today's guest is about to drop some serious wisdom on how to silence your inner critic and amplify your true voice. Let's welcome Paul Larsen to the show. Welcome, Paul.
Oh my gosh. Okay, where is that person you're talking about? I want to learn from that person. I can't wait to meet that person. It's like, really? Wow.
Right.
Thank you so much, Laura. It is like
You're
an
welcome.
absolute pleasure. Aloha.
Oh,
I hope
you.
it comes the right way. If not,
Aloha,
it says aloha,
yes.
Laura. So I'm like,
It
aloha,
does.
Laura.
I love
Yes.
that. Aloha, Paul.
Yes, thank you so much. And it's so funny whenever I hear myself being introduced, and certainly, being blessed to be on these wonderful, wonderful shows and events, or speaking, or in any other kind of venue, it still can trigger. Who is that? Really? Is that really me? Have I done that? Do I believe that? The imposter voice can live at all times. And some days it's kind of diluted. And then some days it is full on steroids. And I just, as we talk today, but it's so funny listening to that, because it still can come out at any point. And this is what I live, and this is what I thrive with, and this is what I coach. But thank you so much for that, such eloquent intro.
I see that person. I've got him pinned on my screen, and I'm so excited to have you here. But I think that's so relatable, and probably, definitely for myself and for so many listeners, whenever I'm being introduced, and I've sent them the bio and it's all true. I fact checked it. It's happened. But at the same time, I get kind of uncomfortable, or is that and almost, yeah, I think it's that imposter syndrome thing. And then there's an expectation that, I have to be that person, but I am that person. And there's this conflict. So I think
Yeah.
it's so relatable and humbling.
I love what you just said, and I think it's a wonderful sort of lesson that we're having right here, because to your point, we wrote the bio for the most part. We authored it, but to be able to sit in the present and acknowledge, wait a minute, that is me. I have done that. I can validate that. I can acknowledge that. I can recognize that. I can celebrate that, because that has come in terms of who I am in my life. But to just sit in the present, which is what's happening, and to allow that and to receive it, even something as kind of simple as an introduction. You're absolutely right. And so I think it's wonderful, because to your point, these things happen all the time. And to be able to recognize it and say, oh yeah, okay, it's going to be my imposter voice or my imposter thoughts. And thank you for that, because what it means to me when I have those thoughts and feelings, as I just delineated to you, and that is, I'm doing something fun, different, new, which is what I'm doing right here with you. So it's great, because my imposter's like, well, wait a minute. This isn't what you normally do on a particular day at a particular time, because it's like I'm doing
Yeah.
something different and fun and new. So thank you
I
for
love
that.
that. It's like you recognize the imposter voice, but then you also say, "You know what? Like, I don't got time for you right now. Like, I'm doing something really fun and I'm going to receive it and be present here." And yeah, so just like, shut up.
Shut up.
That's good.
And I've learned to do that. We'll talk more, as we go through. I have learned to do that. Overcoming stuff. Oh my gosh, it just sounds so tiring to me and fatiguing. It's like, I got to overcome that. I've got to like climb some stairs. I got to like, it just seems like we got to climb those mountains. You see those little memes, got to climb the mountains and get over on the other
Yeah.
side. Uh-uh. I decided early on, when I recognized what imposter syndrome was, thanks to a wonderful coach and mentor I had back in 2004, I decided I'm going to learn about it. I'm going to lean into it. And then it's like, you know what? I'm going to celebrate it, because it does mean that you are like in a different situation. You're in a different environment. And I don't think it's kind of part of who I am. The gremlins, the inner critic, the saboteurs, whatever the body of work we want to call our voices. But the imposter voice can be a combination of anything. But when it triggers with me, and as it does with many of my clients, it's when we're doing something new. It's when we're stepping out of our comfort circle. It's when we are in this growth mode, because it wants to pull you back to be safe and to be in that kind of fixed environment. And so I'm like, thank you so much. Gratitude. Thank you so much, imposter. I've got it. And that has worked so well for me, because it's like it just becomes part of me, and it's like bang, I'm okay. To say thank you, dilute it, and move on.
I love it. Yeah, I love the like just being grateful too. Like even being grateful for the things that you're fearing because sometimes they help point you in the direction that you need to go to work on something. But also, yeah, there's no really like overcoming, because you look back at all the things you've already overcome and it's just kind of here right now, enjoying this moment. Because what if you don't ever reach that goal? Then you would have enjoyed right here and been grateful for it. And I think our imposter voices, all of the challenges that we face sometimes, it's like they build up that contrast in our life so we can appreciate too so much more when, we're just having fun and we get to speak in front of people or something went wrong. It's like, oh, good. I get to like face this challenge and I think I know what to do.
Yeah,
So,
right.
but this is what I love about you, Paul. Like I knew we'd just start right in, like deep, like get right there.
Well, I thank you for that too. And a lot of this has to do with you and I and the trust and just the fun we have. But I do believe in kind of just jumping into the pool and kind of figuring it out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so forth, because we have
Right.
everything we need here. We do. And the our thoughts can sometimes, and our limiting beliefs and our saboteurs, our imposter voices, all those things can get in the way, because it's like, well, wait a minute, you better not go do that, you better not you better stay here, you better analyze this, you don't have your T's crossed or your I's dotted yet, but and then we don't end up what we don't end up doing it. We might have the best of intent, but we stay on intention island. We never get off, because because we analyze it too much. We let the beliefs come into play. So that's why I love you so much, because you and I have a very, very similar avatar around that, in terms of just let's jump in and kind of figure it out. And we can. And it's about mitigating that risk of whatever it is. I'm not going to go jump in front of a bus and try to figure that out, but I am going to be able to take risk, calculated risk, in terms of situations like this, because that's what life's about, and that's how we grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's pitch that idea. New reality show, Intention Island.
Attention.
Like, I love it.
Well,
Um, uh,
Laura's really great, but you know what? She kind of has to go now, and
yeah.
she just doesn't listen to me. It's like, but it's true, because you create this. How many times have you been with people, maybe team members, colleagues, relationships, family, friends, manager, and they say things. Oh, well, Paul, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this for you. I don't want to do that for you, or da da da. and then they don't, and then they don't, and then they don't. And they might have the best of intent, and they may even say that, "Oh, Paul, I had the best of intent to do that. I intended to come to the party. I intended to promote you. I intended to whatever," but they didn't, because for whatever reason, something is keeping them on Intention Island about the relationship, and normally that also has to do with themselves. They we can have the best of intent, we can have the best thoughts, but you've got to take action. That's why I boom, jump into the pool, because it's like, I know for myself that's action for me. But if I go like this and then look off that diving board, I just might say, you know what, I have to go use the lavatory right now. I'll be back. I just boom, go. And that has worked for me. I'm not advocating that for everybody, but you and I as coaches, when we work with each other, and we work with ourselves, and we work with our clients, we find what the best approach is.
Yeah, it's so true. And I find sometimes there's like, I call it a productive procrastination. Like, okay, before I do this big thing, like right now for me, I am working on building out my first like big virtual course, right? But my imposter syndrome says, no, you need to um, pay other people first to watch their courses, because there's, a million courses on there on how to do it. But deep down, like I know I do know how to do it. And sometimes I think but it puts it off, puts it off. Oh, I'm still learning. So I feel like I'm taking action. But in some ways, it's really not. It's putting it off in a way that, I can kind of justify to myself. But I think it's better sometimes to dive in, not be 100% prepared. Maybe you're 70, 80% prepared.
Oh my
Maybe you're going to
gosh.
make some mistakes, but at least you're doing it and taking
Absolutely.
action,
Yeah,
right? Or
absolutely.
it never gets done. We have the best of intentions, and I'm just going to keep reading these books about it, but I'm not really doing it,
Yeah, and
So,
Intention Island can be beautiful. The beach can be great.
yeah.
The lounge
Yeah.
chairs.
There's a great library
Yeah,
there.
great
And
library.
yeah,
The little
yeah, yeah.
drinks with the little umbrellas and the big
Right.
fruit in there, and all the little, oh, it can be beautiful, but we're not going to grow there. We're not going to we can nest there really easily because it's so comfortable, but it's just like another comfort circle, comfort zone, anything else. We're not necessarily going to grow unless we take, as you just said, unless we take that action. And so absolutely, I think it's just a matter of reframing as much as we can, a little bit around that, pivoting a little bit, finessing just a little bit. And sometimes the steps, when I say like jumping off and going into the deep end, that sounds like a huge, like, step. But the steps can be small steps. They can be, as we would call them, baby steps, because how do babies learn to walk? Little by little. They don't get out of their crib and start dancing and walking around. They wobble, they fall, they wobble, they fall, they get up, they sit, they have support. And that's how we can kind of reframe ourselves, by taking smaller steps and make them sustainable.
Yeah. And at least you're moving forward then in some way to get you there, and everybody has their own unique way of doing it. Like my son, we were so worried about him when he was little. He went from crawling to, instead of walking, he decided it was really fun to just shuffle on his knees. So all his pants would get like these big holes in the knees, but he was so fast. He's like, I'm still getting to where I want. And so, we took him to like a podiatrist. We got these special shoes that like squeaked when he walked, all this stupid stuff. And then one day he just decided, it's like, no, okay, I'm going to try it out. But it was on his own timeline. The doctor actually diagnosed him. I remember, I still have it somewhere, like on the form. It was like with stubbornness. Like nothing was wrong with his legs. He was just being like, the doctor viewed him as just being stubborn. And I mean, that tracks with him and his personalities, where like always been very set in his ways and determined to do things his own way, his own path. Whether it's going to put holes in all my pants or not, it doesn't matter, because I'm getting there. But I think it's just moving forward,
Oh my word.
and in your unique
I
way.
love that story. I
Oh,
love that
thanks.
story
Hopefully my
because
son won't hear this. He's going
right,
to be like, Mom, don't talk about me on your podcast.
but it's when people say like a stubbornness, and a doctor can diagnose that, or somebody else, or a professional, But another way of thinking about it is he's persevering in his own way. And that's the beauty of that. Because it's so funny when you said that. I used to walk, I don't know what they used to call it, but you used to walk, I used to kind of walk
Pigeon
in
toed.
pigeon-toed.
Yeah, like I had
Like,
that too. Yeah.
like I really
That was like
watch.
a thing.
It was a
That was
thing.
the thing.
And so I had to
Yeah.
put these like plastic things in the shoes, and I go in and went to this podiatrist, and he would sit on the other side of the office and then watch me walk, right? And to see if I got, and it was like, and I would, of course, and at that time I wanted to do the right thing. So it was like, I'd
Yeah.
try to walk, whatever this was, and he'd be looking down like, what is this? And sure enough, I remember then my mother took me to another medical professional, podiatrist later on. And he says, he goes, he'll do it. He goes, all you got to do is kind of do these kind of exercises, and it has to do with and sure enough, I took out those little plastic things, and so forth. And, that was just two different opinions, but it's funny how we can get conditioned, in terms of how that's going to affect how we are, because, to your point, for the longest time, I thought I walked wrong, or I thought I walked, but yet I got to where I was going. And it wasn't like people were looking and say, oh, he's walking like a pigeon. It's like, no, it's like, but it was really funny how and all of that happens when we're younger, right? And it can get conditioned that way. So, your son's knee walk and my
Yeah.
pigeon walk,
The
they're just,
shuffle,
yeah, they'll shuffle. They're just dances. I just look at them as like, they're just dances. We're finding how
nothing's
we're going to dance with life.
wrong with us because we're doing something differently,
No,
but we get conditioned so young,
Right. And so it just, that's why I love that story, because it is so true, but it still happens today. We can use that analogy, walking on our knees, or walking pigeon-toed, or looking for things that are going to help us walk straight or walk the right way, as these little inserts we're supposed to do in my feet, in my shoes. But we still do that today. We look for different ways to cobble ourselves together, instead of just, and then what happens, I think, what I was doing with those little plastic things, I was faking it. So I was kind of faking it till I could make it. And I don't, I if that works for people, great. I like to face it till you make it.
Yeah.
You just face it.
You have to face it.
And that's what
you
the
have to
second
face
professional told me. Basically, it's like, take these things out of here. Take the little plastic things out of here. And he goes, just exercise. He gave me some exercises to do with my feet, with my, and the soles of my feet and everything. And he goes, face it. Just like figure it out. Don't let let those plastic insoles tell you how to walk, and then become enabled with those, right? And sure enough, that was it. And for that worked. And as I'm saying this to you now, I didn't realize the lesson that there was in that. So thank you for that, because it just came up as you were talking about your son and everything.
Awesome.
Because
we had that breakthrough.
Yeah, it's like, hello. It's like, it's so funny how we just get conditioned, and we can rely on limiting beliefs, excuses, and so forth. And then, what if I kept those plastic things in? Now, 6 decades later, I've got these plastic, what am I doing with that? It's like, and I'm not saying that things don't work that way, by the way. They certainly can. But in that regard, I listened, and my mother, bless her heart, was very open to listening and receiving other advice, other guidance, other pieces. And then she says she saw how I was like, yes, I don't have to wear these things, and I'm going to do something on my own to because everything I had was within here, as you and I just said. And the doctor's like, yeah, you don't need those. He goes, let's figure this out. You've got everything right here, right? All you got to do is kind of like pivot it a little bit, finesse it a little bit, exercise a little bit differently. You'll be fine.
Love it.
So we can walk any way we want. You know what I mean?
We can walk any damn way we want.
Yes.
A part of the show that I really love, I call it the Killer 13. And this is just 13 rapid fire random questions coming your way. I did not, listeners, give Paul these questions beforehand. And this is a way to kind of get to know you even more in kind of a quirky way before we dive in a little deeper with some of your stories.
Sure.
Are you ready to play the Killer 13?
I'm ready to play the Killer 13.
Yes. So like I
Good.
said,
More.
these are light, just rapid fire. So the first one, I'm giving you a softball here. Number one, Paul, what's the meaning of life?
To live life to its fullest.
I knew you'd have it right away. I love it. Number two, how do you like your burger?
Well done.
Well done.
hmm
With what on it?
Oh, I like everything on it. So it's funny when you say that. I know this is supposed to be a short answer, but I love because usually it's being prepared by somebody else sometimes, right? And I love them. I say, put everything on it. And I love to see what they
Mm.
do to help me create whatever it is I'm going
Ah,
to eat. But I like it well
I
done
love
so that
it.
the meat is like well done. But I love everything on it. And then if I'm doing it, if I'm preparing that part of it, I put everything on it. And I just see, because everything could be anything in that environment or wherever you are. And I love to see the taste that comes out of that and so forth. So that, yeah, everything.
I love it. It could
Mhm.
be chili and an egg and hot
Oh,
pepper. You just don't know
oh,
what you're
yeah. I
getting,
mean, you
right?
just don't, it's like, and as you and I travel and it's like people say, well, what do you want on it? It's like, just put everything on it. I'm not going to sit here and pick and choose. Put everything on it and I'll see how it tastes. That's all part.
I love it. All right, number three. So if I have this right, your master's is in organizational development. What's one tip to listeners to help them be more organized?
Um, you know, listen to yourself. I have found for people to be more organized, to be more synchronized, to be more aligned. Again, it goes back. We know what we need to do on that. We can get people to come in and organize our closets. We can get people to come in and organize our lives and all that stuff, and it's wonderful. Don't get me wrong; those people are professionals. But to organize who we are and to organize, it starts up here. So normally, if we need organization in our life, we have to first organize our thoughts. We have to first organize what we want and what that purpose is and outcome. So start with yourself, listen to yourself, and begin to organize your thoughts around what you want.
Wow, that hit me so hard. That is so good. I love that so much because I'm always thinking about things I want organized, but then why? Like, why do I want my office organized? Like why? I mean, and part of it is just seeking control in my life over things that feel chaotic, like my bookkeeping or things like that, right? I mean, it's tax day, by the way, and
Yeah.
like I'm gonna file late. So it's like, but like why, right? So it's yeah, I love that. That's so good.
Yeah.
All right, number four. What's the weirdest thing? I know you've traveled a lot. What's the weirdest thing you've ever eaten?
That's a great question. I love that. We were on the street in Istanbul, and we were hungry. My Steve and I, my partner and I, and we were just really hungry. And there was a guy with a barbecue out there, and he was grilling up stuff, and people were stopping. Smelled great. There's on this big French roll, and I said, I don't know what it was because it was in Turkish, the language, and we weren't going to do Google Translate, and it's like let's just eat it. We got it. It was absolutely delicious, and so forth. We found out later, we found out next, and it was tripe, right? So it was the intestines, and people have that. That's not, I don't want to say that's weird or something because but for us it was like different. And it's a great lesson because if I had known what it was beforehand, I wouldn't have eaten it because my belief system would have kicked in and all that. And it was delicious. So I'm just saying it's sort of like we just dove into that. It's like, again, going into that pool sometimes and trusting yourself. And so it was probably one of the most different things I've eaten. I don't like to say weird because um, it's not weird to other people who have that in their diet every
Yeah.
day. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. I mean, it could go wrong if you're always like default is let's just eat it. But I'm glad it worked out well
Well, and here's the
for
thing.
you.
As we travel, I see things on, people are selling stuff on the street to eat and so forth, and it could be like the insects, and there's different kinds of things that are very very popular, and supposedly, I probably would not because that for myself that stops me, and I know that a lot of people it's like absolutely great. But for that, it was very easy for me to go in and do that, and enjoy it, and it helped kind of uh, what do I want to say? Check my assumptions on that. It was like,
Yeah,
see,
I love it.
Paul, You just
Yeah.
have to sometimes just do what just go in and trust. Because we trust it. It's like, it smelled good, people. It's like, let's go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good lesson. I love
Yeah.
that. What's your ultimate hype song? Gets you dancing.
There is a disco song that was by an artist named Kelly Marie. I think she's British, and it was kind of out in the late 70s, early 80s when disco was at its height, and it's like feels like I'm in love. And it's a
Oh.
kind of a longer song. It's one of those long 12-inch records, they used to play the albums. And it is a wonderful song. And my friends would always know when when we'd go clubbing and you could hear you have the DJs all spin and when that song was like in the distance because it was upcoming, they would run and get me wherever, because I was always somewhere around, because they knew I would want to dance to that and have fun. And to this day, besides some of the Partridge Family's hits and so forth, it's on my
Mm.
playlist. It's on
I
that
love
playlist.
it. Oh,
Yeah.
I'd love to see your playlist. Partridge Family.
Mm.
I Think I Love You. I used to love that
Oh yeah.
song.
And
And I'm gonna look up that
yeah,
other.
Think I Love You was definitely one of their hits, but they've had some other
Yeah.
other
Yeah,
songs.
they were good. I love it. All right. Okay, you can only watch one movie for the rest of your life. What is it?
The Favorite.
Really?
Yeah, The Favorite with
Oh,
oh gosh, now the name escaped me.
Emma Stone? Wait,
No,
no, The Favorite.
she won Best Actress for it. She was Queen Anne.
Oh,
Remember, it was
yeah.
a few years ago. Oh my gosh, I can't
Yeah.
think of her name. I can't
But
think of
you
her name.
love that
So The
that one
Favorite
too.
was, I don't know why that movie just sort of, um, I don't usually, it's a period piece, but it captures so many different elements of human behavior, of the elitism of royalty, but also of mental instability, of mental illness, because the queen was that, um, and the way they told the story, through the eyes of these two people who were very close to the queen, these two ladies. Brilliant, just brilliant. But I'm so sorry, I can't think of her name. She's a brilliant British
Yeah, I'm gonna look
actress
it up.
now.
Yeah,
You know,
it's all coming back to me, that movie now. I'm remembering, but I can't think of who
it
it is
won. I think it
either.
won. I believe it. She won Best Actress, and I believe it won Best Movie, or
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
nominated at least, about a few years ago. So
Awesome. Now I
that
wanna
one,
rewatch it.
and to your point, I watch it all the time. So whenever I see it,
Mm.
I will watch
Oh,
it. Yeah.
isn't it funny how
Is
some movies come on and you just like, I'm like that with The Wizard of Oz. Like, I can't not
Yeah,
watch
like
that,
Wizard of
or
Oz,
something. Like,
or
I'm going to watch The Notebook. I'm gonna watch,
yeah,
like, there's some like, there's just some movies,
another one I love, though. I know this is one answer, but since you just mentioned
It's
that,
okay.
one's modern, and then I did find All About Eve with Betty Davis,
Mm,
and Baxter, and that there's a whole team of people in that. But All
little
About Eve
classic.
and classics, and about the
Mm.
deception and how people will come in. It's the true movie of it takes place on Broadway, right in New York, and Betty Davis is the star. But what an understudy, why the understudies are not necessarily trusted. It was like, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful movie. I watched it for the first time just a couple of years ago, and to your point, whenever it's on, I'm there because it's so well done, so well done. But again, human dynamics, human behavior, what we can do to each other, and in the space of a very short time, and yeah. Yeah, she was at her, like, she was just she was immaculate in that movie.
Oh, wow. All right, what's something you used to believe as a kid and now just makes you laugh?
I used to believe that when we watch and this isn't like any big shakes or anything, but when we watch the news, because I grew up born in the '60s, but really kind of grew up in the '70s, and so we'd watch the evening news, that it was the news of everywhere, that I was getting the news of everywhere. So when I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area in California, so we'd watch the 6 o'clock news. And I just believed when I was watching the news that I was getting the news from Seattle and Denver and New York and Atlanta and Miami, that, everything that was going on was on that 22 minutes of local news. It's crazy. And I didn't understand how that wasn't the case. It was like, what? It's only this part. And it's, so that we weren't getting everything. So that was, somehow it's not like huge earth shattering, but it was so funny to think that my mind was very myopic and very
It's like the
narrow.
whole world. This is what's happening right
Exactly.
now.
But you know
Yeah,
what? But
yeah.
you know what? As I say this to you, um, think about that nowadays. Think about what people believe nowadays, right? And what we're dealing with, quote unquote, without getting into too much detail around that, but what people believe nowadays is kind of what they are just reading or seeing or streaming, and that's their world and that's their beliefs. And I started that back in the 70s. I was a trendsetter, but I broke away from that. I recognized like, oh, okay, that's not everything. And maybe I shouldn't believe everything that comes on that, because it's filtered and it's nuanced.
Yeah, it's just perception of where you are
Yeah, it's
too and what
perception.
yeah,
It's
and
perception it's also perception of what that media, particular media, wants to feed you. So
so interesting,
it's interesting
yeah.
you brought that up because it was like I just thought because we're kind of still there.
Yeah,
Even though
that's
we
so
have
true.
everything available to us.
All the information in the entire universe is kinda at our fingertips, and yet, yes,
And yet we're
in some
still
ways it hasn't changed.
right,
We're
well,
yeah,
and I think,
still in our bubble.
yeah,
Yeah.
it might have to do with safety, and it might have to do with security, and it might have to do with fear, right? For me, it was just, I was, just a little kid, like trying to like, figure stuff out. But nowadays, I think it might have, I don't want to have to know everything. I just want to know what that's going to be, because that's all I can handle, or I don't want to be intimidated by
Yeah,
everything.
sometimes you have to set those boundaries. I mean, I worked in Washington for a long time, so it's kind of like a news junkie first, and I'm fascinated by politics, and now it's like I still have a fascination with it, but I really have to be careful. I don't get myself like I'm all of a sudden 2 hours have gone by and I've watched all these shows and what's going on, and I just feel sick to my stomach or something. It's like it's not good for me also, but I do like to just be informed. But then again, yeah, there's your information is just what you're choosing it to be, and there's so much out there. So it's hard. So Paul and I were talking about introversion. We're both introverts. Like before I hit the record button because you just got back from, big events and speaking and all of that and how that can like the impact it can have as an introvert. So this question is kind of a nod to that. You have to attend an event of 500 people where you're the only introvert. So what's your advice?
So first of all, recognize that. So even your question was staged very well, but even as you read the question like that, where you are the only introvert, that could come across like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Oh my gosh, and it can be, we can react to that as an introvert especially. So you want to respond appropriately. It's a difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is just allowing our emotions to take over, imposter to take over, our critics to take over, our fixed mindset to take over and keep us safe. So we might not want, then we might end up doing things we don't want to do. But to respond appropriately, say, okay, I'm going to a 500-person event. I'm going to be the only introvert. Gosh, that gives me an opportunity to be very distinctive, to bring a different kind of brand to this whole event, to potentially educate myself and others on what it means to be that. I'm an introvert, yet you see me here talking like this, and people say, "Oh, are you really an introvert?" And it's like it has nothing to do with my style. It has nothing to do with how I speak. It has nothing to do with the fact that I love to speak in front of groups of 50, 500, or whatever. Has everything to do with my energy. So that goes into the second piece to understand and recognize, okay, I'm going to be an introvert. I may be the only one there. I'm going to have to set the boundaries for myself in terms of my energy. How am I going to nourish myself? How am I going to create? Because responding is creating. So, how am I going to create that environment where I'm going to be successful? Because I'm going to be speaking to 500 people. I am there to serve them. I am there to provide for them. I am there to inspire them. I am there to educate. So, how am I going to do that with making sure that I am replenished from an energetic standpoint. So normally what I do on something like that, Laura, I don't just go in and just, ping around like the old Pong game, right? And get kind of moving back and forth between different events or sessions and so forth. Before you know it, I'm exhausted by like 12 noon, right? No. I go in and I'm very deliberate when I look at like the calendar of events, the timing of everything, where am I? Because the other piece I want to do, even as an introvert, I want to meet as many people as I can. I want to go into the audience. And I just want to, and I'm not going to go into the audience with these huge groups. I'm going to go in and meet people like maybe with, three or four when I see them standing, or maybe on a session break, or maybe on a lunch break, and just begin to talk to them and listen. I'm not there to speak and perform. I'm there to listen, because that will help me understand the vibe, the energy of the group. So that when it's my turn to speak, no matter if I'm the first, the middle, or the last, um, the group knows me. The group is familiar with me, and I'm familiar with them. Now, I'm not going to meet all 500 probably, but I will be very deliberate in how I create that environment, because I know as an introvert, I could get fatigued, I could get tired, I can get burned out very easily, and that's all about me, and I'm there to be all about them. So I,
That's
I have to
gold.
take care of
Yeah.
myself with that.
That's golden. That helps me so much too. When I'm going into a big networking event or something and I'm just feeling a little uncomfortable in whatever it is. But if I kind of change my mindset that, you know what, I don't have to react to this situation. I don't have to talk if I don't want to. I can ask questions. I can be the listener. I can be the best listener in that room. And then I'm like off the hook. And I love hearing people's stories and I love kind of, getting to know people's different personalities. I find it all fascinating. So then suddenly I'm like looking forward to it. It's like, cool. I can just be me and, it's okay. And then just protecting that around me.
When to your point, we've all been in networking situations, when I've lost jobs and changing jobs. Oh, you got to go network. You got to go network. Get out there and network. Nothing sounds more nauseating to me than like, oh my God, get your spreadsheet, get all the people. You got to go meet everyone. Da, da. And like, oh my God, can I throw up now, please? But here's what I would do. And I knew that's part of it, right? It is connections, it is relationships, it is all of that. But I would just say, okay, I am going to go to that particular event, that dinner, that whatever it is. I'm going to meet two people. That's it. I'm just going to have a goal of two people, maybe three people, maybe four, maybe one. But I would have a goal, a response that way. And then I would feel really good. And to your point, I love, 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 love what you said about listening, because people will remember you. Oh my gosh, she listened to me. She wasn't listening to reply, right? Oh, yeah, yeah, I'm hearing you. Oh yeah, I got something too. I got to talk to. You were listening to understand somebody. You were listening of all about their story, what you said. And they will remember that. So I love that, because so many people in today's world, we're in this white noise chaos of digital and social tech, which is fine. I'm on all the platforms. I have fun with it, but it can be very noisy, and it can be noise that doesn't really always matter, or noise that won't move us ahead. I want to filter that noise into the bells and whistles for myself that will then ring and help move me forward in a very deliberate way while serving others.
So good. I'm so glad this is all being recorded for there's so many good gems here. Thank you so much. And this is all just supposed to be like silly stuff, and we're like going deep, and I love it so much. All right, what's one book that you wish everyone would read?
Love Your Life by Louise Hay. How to Love Your Life.
Oh, okay. I'm
How to
writing that
Love Your
down.
Life by Louise Hay. So I paused there for a moment because there were two books there. Wayne Dyer has, I'm a Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay kind of fan, so to speak. And I came in late to them. They both passed, I believe, transitioned in 2016. And I didn't start really kind of reading and really becoming aware of them till after that. And that doesn't necessarily matter because their work is still so alive and vibrant. But Louise Hay, her story, when you talk about story, her life story, and then what she's done in 50s and 60s. She started Hay House, the publishing company, when she was 50 or 60. All of that, but all of her what she had before that, and how she kind of just came into this loving yourself, loving your life, and how to really, really, really do that in a way that replenishes and affirms who you are. One thing she says, one thing I always take away from is everything you say to yourself is an affirmation. So what are you affirming?
Mm,
Because we seem to think, oh,
wow.
affirmations are, I love myself. It's
Wow, I
wonderful.
love that.
No, everything we say to
Wow, it's so
ourselves is
good.
an
Oh,
affirmation.
oh my
So you've got to
goodness.
really be aware of that talk of what we are saying to ourselves and the thoughts that come out of that, because it's up to us. So yeah, Love Your Life, by Louise Hay. And yeah, I just think it's right up, it's who you are. It's everything about who you are and so forth.
All right, we're nearing the end here. This is so good. What's your favorite country that you visited that you just or you love to go back to?
Well, that's a hard question, actually. That's a really
Yeah.
good question because people ask me, like, what's your favorite country? And my answer is always in the one that I'm in. The one that I'm
Oh,
in, right?
wow.
Because I'm
Oh,
there for a reason, and
yeah.
I'm living there, working there, whatever it is. Um, but I really, really, a country to me is the culture, and it's the beauty of the people and what they represent, and how they build community. So it's really I can't just speak to one,
Yeah.
because when I say one, there's all these
Yeah.
others too. So it really
Yeah.
is the one that I'm in, because
It's
I love
where
to go
where you
anywhere.
are. I love that answer so much. Well, what's your favorite piece of or your must-have piece of travel gear?
Oh, I must have piece of travel gear. What is it that I walk around with? I guess it's very simple. It's just the old earplugs,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
earbuds of
And
some
when you don't
kind.
wanna talk to the person next to you on the flight, it's as an
And I
introvert.
will, yeah, and
Sometimes I do, but,
yeah, I to your point,
so
I will always acknowledge the person, because I think as humans to
mm.
humans, we can acknowledge,
Yeah, of course.
and then I won't necessarily, have to go further than that, and they may not either. Sometimes if they do, it's wonderful, and we can have a wonderful conversation. And then sometimes,
Mhm.
these can play a role. But I love these because these represent also our ability to learn, our ability to
Mm.
listen. I think one of the people say, well, what's the one of the best inventions that, I don't know if that's a question you have, but what's one of the best inventions that
Yeah.
you utilize?
No.
And of course, one could say, oh, wow, my gosh, look at the smartphone, look at what that does.
Yeah.
But to me, it's that online, it's the reader, it's the e-reader of
Mm.
whatever your brand you might have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yes, that
Yeah.
can be on a smartphone. I understand all that. But thinking about when I used to travel and we used to take these books with us, right? It's like, okay, how many books can I fit in here? It's like, oh my gosh, they're hardback. And you had to really kind of choose. Am I going to read that? Am I going to read that one? And I know people still do that because they love books. They love yeah. But to me, to be able to pick up just any kind of e-reader that's like this, and in here to have the whole world, and I can choose whatever I want to listen to or read, and it will nourish me. It might provoke me. It might give me. There have been so many times, Laura, where I've been traveling to an event, a conference, and I read something that just changed everything that I was going to say, because I was like, and so that meant there's no accidents in life. That meant I was supposed to read that in that moment, or listen to it in that moment, or watch it in that moment, and it brought a whole new worldview to me that I was able to bring to that stage, to that audience, to that, whether it's 5 people, 10 people, hundreds of people, or thousands. It's like, wow. And it's so to me, it's sort of that, it's anything I can do that will nourish me in that listening mode, in that speaking mode, and in that reading mode.
Yeah, it's so powerful what we have access to, and
Oh,
yeah,
it is.
just
I
beautiful.
never lose gratitude for that because I know we can overlook so much today, and we take things for granted, and it's like, and I get, and I'm the same way, but I look at that and I'm like, I have every book at my disposal, if this was an e-reader, in here, and I get to pick what I get. If I read one page, sometimes I do my one page or 1 minute. I randomly go into a book and I just pick one page, 1 minute, and read it and take something from that. And it can be anywhere in the book that I haven't read yet. It could be maybe a book that I've already read. And just to see, like, okay, what's that about? Do I go further in that? Do I bring that in to what I'm doing? I just have a lot of fun. There's that curiosity piece that it satisfies for me.
Yeah, I love it. All right, what's one daily tiny habit that just makes a huge difference in your life?
Yeah. So I practice each morning the 3 C's. And I just kind of touched on one right there. How creative am I going to be today? And what's that going to look like? How curious am I going to be today? And what is that going to look like? And how courageous am I going to be today? And what's that going to look like? And I answer those questions very, very simply. And I answer them in a way that, just, again, creativity, curiosity, and courageousness. They all go together. It's the trifecta of C's, I call it. Um, because for me, that's what brings life, like behind me here in this vibrant, beautiful art piece by this artist. That's what brings a color into my life, the vibrancy into my life, the energy into my life. It's everything. It's that curiosity. When we stop asking why, or we stop being curious about ourselves and others, or we stop being creative about how to do something differently, or gosh, I never thought about that way. That's incredible. And we've stopped being courageous or having that courage. One of my clients just said to me, I don't think I have the courage to live the life I want. It's like, whoa, and I just said, well, hold on a minute. It's like, first of all, congratulations on acknowledging a limiting belief, because that's what that is. Congratulations on bringing that out. And then we talk about, like, we all have courage. We all have it. It's a matter of how we want to develop it and reveal it. It's like having a bus. We all have the muscles that make up our body, that make up the frame of our body. Well, courage is just another muscle that we've got. How do we develop it, and so forth? So it's always something at the forefront for me, those 3 C's.
Mm. Do you kind of journal on that, like right when you wake up, or it's just giving you like a little thought about the day, how you're approaching it?
Yeah, I love that question because I don't, I'm not a big journaler. And people, because it becomes because it becomes a have to do. You gotta journal.
Oh,
You gotta bring this
yeah.
out. You
Be
gotta,
grateful
yeah,
for
big,
3
okay,
things every
write
night.
5 pages, write three, and I know
Yeah.
that you don't have to do that. I know that, and
Yeah.
that's my judge speaking right now. But I allow myself whatever the freedom is around my 3 C's to do whatever it wants to have those, to manifest those anyway. Sometimes I do write them out, sometimes I doodle them out, and sometimes they just come up here and it doesn't go anywhere else. And it doesn't matter. I just love it all. I just it's just a few moments to do that, and then I move on with my day. Sometimes I move on to something else that might, in terms of grounding and centering. But I allow myself that 3 C, that trifecta of C's every morning, to just allow me to think, okay, because I know my curiosity, my creativity, and my courage is what has propelled me into meeting you and being here with you
Aw.
today. So
Thank
so
you.
I want to continue that and make sure that that continues.
It's so brilliant. What a gift for our audience. I think those 3, those 3 words are so powerful in their meaning and approaching our days. And they're interconnected to me too, because I find when I when I want to be more courageous about something that's scaring me a little to do, if I approach it with curiosity, like, I wonder how this is going to go today.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's going to be a total screw up. Maybe it's, but then I'll learn. Maybe I'm just going to kill it. Like, who knows? But then it's like that childhood sense of wonder, right? And kind of a fun cause and effect sort of feeling like, yeah, and then I can do it.
Children have,
Yeah.
to your point, children have such a wonderful way of that sense of wonder, that sense of asking why, and then going out and trying stuff. And then as we get normed into adulthood, it's like, no, you better not do that. No, 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 don't go there. No, and and then we get told, like, behavioral, like, gender wise, men don't cry, men don't do. Oh my gosh, women do this, women. It's like, and maybe that's changed a little bit now, of course, but still, there are behavioral norms. But children, that's why curiosity and creativity and courageousness, that's what children are. And
Yeah.
they
We can
just,
learn so much.
yeah. And I want to keep that kind of childlike,
That
that
wonderment.
wonderment that I had when I watched The Partridge
Yeah.
Family every Friday at
Yeah.
8:30
I love
p.m.
it.
But that wonderment of, like, how do they get together and sing like that in such a short period of time? Like, but more importantly, how do I exude my own creativity, my own courageousness, and my own curiosity, and how do I help others do that? Because I do that as a,
Mm.
as a coach, but I've got to
I
do it
love that you
myself.
do that.
Do it as
It's so
myself.
powerful. Well, I was thinking about when you were talking about your own imposter syndrome earlier when I was reading your intro and how, they say that oftentimes what we're leaning towards sharing with others, teaching others is our lessons like we're still working on deep within ourselves too. And, I find that does like play out
Yeah,
often, especially with creative people.
yeah.
I think the things that
Oh
we're just
yes.
drawn to, it's like, yeah, we're still working on it.
Yeah.
There's no just there. Okay, I broke through. I overcame. It's like a process, right?
No, it goes by. In coaching, we like to say that the transformation doesn't occur when you get there. The transformation occurs in the journey. And the journey can be there doesn't have to be a timeline to it, quote unquote. It's more important that we are deliberate with the steps that we take, going back to what we talked about. But you're absolutely right. It's about how do we help ourselves to help others. And so, one of the things I got sober like 34 years ago, and don't ask me, like, how that happened, in the sense of, like, wow, I could barely, like, probably pick myself up off the floor then. But I recognized something. There was a voice within me that said, if you don't stop this, Paul, you are not going to be able to have the life you want. Even though at whatever, I think, age I was, 29 at that time, I did not quite know the life that I wanted, but I was receptive enough and aware enough to know it was not what I was living in that moment. So we have things that occur in our lives sometimes, and it goes back to kind of what you've been saying, to just listen to ourselves, and that ability to just kind of sit and, like, oh, that's right. And that's what happened to me. Some people have, like, cataclysmic and really tragic events that really break them open. My breakage around that was just different. It wasn't so dramatic, but it was a breakage within myself that said, you can't go on like this, because it's just not going to work. It's not, who knows what's going to happen, but you can't go on like that. I was broken open that way, but more importantly, I responded to it and I listened to it, to your point. And that's the beauty of to think that I did that at 29, when it was like, hello, but I did. So we all can have these coming of age moments at any point in our life.
Ah, it's never too late
Never.
to have
Or
that. And
early.
sometimes,
Right.
or early. Yeah. And sometimes it's just the sense of urgency deep within you finally comes out and you listen. And for whatever reason, you can receive it. Right. Because it was probably speaking before
Oh
then,
yeah.
but you weren't, you couldn't receive it yet.
Oh, it
And
was
then
speaking
finally you
before.
can.
Absolutely. And it was
Yeah.
speaking also, to your point, it was speaking through other people as well. But I wasn't like, oh,
Oh,
don't worry about it. I've got it handled. I've got,
yeah, I'm
I'm
fine.
fine. The controller
Yeah.
in me I've got everything in control. And I did. I had a good job. It's like, look, I've got, but yeah, it was one of those things where the facade was out here with a beautiful, I had a good life and a good job and everything else. But but inside, you want to know that? I was faking it till I made it, and I wasn't gonna make it. So what my voice was saying, "Oh, thank you for this, Laura. My God, it just hit me." I was facing it. I had to face it. And in that moment, I did. In that moment, I just said, "Yep, I've got to do this, and I'm gonna need some help with that," which I did get help and everything, but I had to do that. Yeah.
I
So
relate to that a lot in a different way, not with that kind of addiction, but with my own fears of public speaking, ironically now. But you know what I find about faking it, because I did that for a long time, trying to kind of hide this anxiety I had, is that it gets exhausting. Like it's exhausting physically, mentally, every day, showing up, being someone you're not really, and not facing that truth,
Well,
right?
to that point, think about to what you just said was a gem. Think about perhaps an individual or somebody who we may not be aligned with, or there's not a nourishment going back and forth, but we fake it with them, right? And we continually do that. Well, we're not being true to them. We're certainly not being true to ourselves. Instead of just saying, you know what? I'm just not that into you, to borrow the old adage,
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah,
or whatever. So it's sort of like,
yeah.
you know, to even relationships,
Mm.
we need to face it. Now,
Yeah, and it
and,
is
it
exhausting.
is, and sometimes we do fake it. So we just fake it to get through the evening, to get through that. It's like, okay, but to be deliberate with that, to be aware of that, to make sure that you are making that choice. It's not just on autopilot, that you are making
Yeah,
that
and you're not
choice.
doing it just from, like, a people-pleasing standpoint, because then you're just kind of sacrificing something within you, and showing up as who you are, and
And
it
then
takes a
we get
toll.
resentful and discouraged, and we
Yeah.
become a victim and blah blah blah. And it's like, oh,
Yeah, it's a
just like, yeah,
downward spiral
right,
of hell there.
right.
So, well, we're on to our last question. We've covered so much. I didn't expect it to all go so deep, and I'm so glad it did. It's such a gift. You're such a gift, what we've covered. I love the three C's. That's so powerful. What we touched on imposter syndrome and introversion. And, it's just so, so brilliant. But this is the public speaking horror show. So I'm going to frame my last question because I know you got a story in there. Can you share with us a story? What was a story that you have an experience speaking where it just went a bit sideways? It wasn't what you expected. And how did you respond? Because I know you're a responder, not a reactor, but maybe else around you sometimes can react, right? So tell us about an experience like that and how you handled it before we wrap up.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's a beautiful, beautiful question, because so much can happen with and learnings right from that.
Yeah.
That one that went sideways. Well, I had one that was like the Poseidon Adventure, where it like flipped upside down. Right. And
Oh, no.
I'm dating myself there with that movie and the
Oh,
ship.
I knew right
Oh
away,
yeah.
but yeah,
Look it
okay.
up, folks, if you've never heard of that movie.
Yeah.
Shelley Winters. Yes.
Mm.
So yeah, I was on it's just great. So it was so funny. I was on a speaking tour with a bunch of other speakers, beautiful speakers, wonderful speakers, very credible speakers, and we were on a Southeast Asia kind of speaking tour, Singapore, Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, Bangkok, and this one we happened to went for about a week in Myanmar. And this was a few years ago, so it was before Myanmar has had unfortunately the coup, and now the tragic what they've had. So we were in Myanmar, and we were in Mandalay, which was actually beautiful, very vibrant city. And so they had our folks that were part of the tour kind of advisors and coordinators had arranged it that we were going to be speaking at this big event in Mandalay at this huge like fairgrounds park, right? And they have this huge amphitheater, and there's going to be like, it was like kind of this big event, and we were going to be speaking. And Paul was going to be speaking. My part was going to come up and be speaking on sort of what my book is, find your voice as a leader, right? So, it's going to be like about 25 minutes of that. And we had asked, like, okay, we'd done all the speaking due diligence, right? Like, how many people, what's the demographic? And we were getting some answers that were kind of vague and so forth, only because it was just this huge kind of, it was kind of this big event that was combined with some other events. And we're like, okay. And some of the speakers were like, well, okay, what is it? What's going to go on? And I was like, okay, we're just going to walk into it and see what it is. So we get to this, like the event space, which is again like a big amphitheater with those kind of concrete seats they have sometimes, and then a whole grass area. And there had to be at least about 1,200 people there, all of them from all over, from all over, and with families and like lots of kids. And so the crowd just went for on and on. There's lots of food and lots of like frivolity, and it was like cool vibe, very cool energy. So we get up to at the front part of this, and we're looking, and one of the speakers, who's a wonderful, trusted friend of mine, she's like, "Oh," and I said, "What?" She goes, "When do you go?" And I said, "I think I go like I'm the first or second, right, to go on." She goes, "I think that's going to be your screen up there." Because we were like, you're going to have a screen, going to have projection, going to have like the kind of a typical stage environment is what we expected, and potentially that what we were told. But I'm sure it was lost in communication or interpretation. Well, up there was a little desk, the size of like a little Barbie and Ken desk, because this whole amphitheater is huge and 1,200 people. And on the desk was a little desktop computer, like any other, like a little HP, like a little Commodore computer with a little screen the size of that. And that was the screen. That was going to be my screen that I was going to use to have 1,200 people watch the slides that I had so diligently, prepared with animation and color.
Oh no.
And people started, these other speakers started kind of like, they started looking at me like, they kind of started like getting like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And yeah, because they were also like, and they were like, some of them were like, "Oh, we can't do this. There's no way that that's not going to work." And, and the event had already started with whatever it was, because there was a award ceremony. There's all this stuff going on. I had no idea, because none of it was in English. That was the other thing. It was like it wasn't in English, but there was a translator up there who was translating. But that time she was translating in a whole nother language. Well, I just found the whole thing like, I found it to be just exceptional. I just like it's like, oh, this is going to be like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And people are like, do you know what you're going to do? Do you know what you're going to do? And I said, yeah, I'm going to figure it out on my way up there. On my way up there. So up until that point, it's about another 15 minutes. The whole thing is like the presentation was gone, completely gone. So what I did is I thought, I've got to get into the group as an introvert, right? I got to feel these people. And they're lovely, beautiful people, just incredible souls, this incredible energy. So I went into the audience, and they didn't know who I was. They didn't even know if I was going to be a speaker. I was just some guy walking through, but I was smiling, and they were smiling. And I was like, yay. And they were, I just kind of was walking through the audience while some of the other stuff was up on stage. And just kind of, watching the people and acknowledging. A lot of people came up and shook my hand just because they wanted to. And that made me feel like, whoa, okay, this group is ready for anything. This group will play with me. This group will do something with me. And they were just incredibly benevolent, right? And you know what? They weren't going to watch some slides. They weren't probably even going to, want to. So when about 5 minutes later, my name, and it's like, Paul Larsen, da, 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 and they give an introduction, just kind of like what you gave, right? And I could tell, like, it was like, it didn't matter who I was. It didn't matter what, it was like, I just ran up there, very Oprah-like, and I just like did these big twirls around the stage, one of my speaking friends, Frank Furness, he does a lot of sales speakings, and he goes, Paul, you just twirl like nobody. He goes, you have this way of bringing people with you as you twirl. And that's what I did. And everyone started laughing, and they started clapping, and they started like hooting and hollering. And it was like, and I was just twirling around, and literally, Laura, as I was twirling, I was like, what the F am I going to be doing? I had no idea. I was twirling around.
It buys you time.
Yeah.
That's
And then I
right.
decided, you know what? Everyone understands the word voice, right? And that was my book, right? Find your voice as a leader. And I was going to go into the intricacies of voice, your values, your outcomes, your influence, your courage, your expression. That wasn't going to work here. So I just said, okay, voice. Do we have a voice? Do we have a voice? Do we have a voice? And I repeated everything 3 times. And it became like a mantra, right? And it was so funny because the speakers that I was with were like getting into it. They were like, oh, this is where he's going. And they knew that, we repeat stuff 3 times. So what I ended up doing was just saying, we all have a voice. We all have a voice. We all have a voice. I mean, I had no idea what I was doing. I was watching the audience because it was like, 1,200 people is a lot of people. But the little kids were into it because they were having fun. And I said, you know what? That's what we're giving them. We're giving them this chance to kind of have fun and be motivated. And then what I ended up doing was I ended up like, you are the V's, you are the O's, you are the I's, you are the C's. So I got them to stand up with the V's and then stand up with the O's.
I love it.
Yeah. And everyone just, it was just wonderful. I was running up and down and this is like 100-degree heat with a 500% humidity. So I was like, but I was having the time of my life. It was so much fun. And then we got off that and I ended that. And everyone they just loved it. And, they just loved it, but I loved them. And that was the part about it is I felt connected to them. So, and are they going to walk away with the intricacies of like, how do you actually find your voice? What's the workbook like? No, but that wouldn't have worked. This was going to be giving them the nourishment, which they needed actually, of inspiration, of purpose, of just passion and so forth. And got off stage and one of the other speakers came up and he just said to me, how did you do that? He goes, how did you go from this PowerPoint presentation you were going to do to that? And I said, in the moment. I said, I just had to think in the moment. I said, I put myself in that audience. What would I want? I don't live in Myanmar. I don't live, in the same culture and so forth, but it's like, what would I want? And that was just something that I needed to really put myself there. And I said, I'd want somebody up here just jamming it and just being there with them. And that's the key. How do you serve them? If I had continued on with trying to do it there, the way that we were supposed to do it with the PowerPoint on this little desktop or deciding not to do it as maybe some of the speakers did, it wouldn't have worked. And even if I had done it that way, who am I serving? Who am I, I had to figure that out. And I tell you that story because it really went, could have been sideways, and it could have been completely upside down. But I said, okay, asking why, what could I do differently? Creativity, what could I do differently? Curiosity, what do they want? Who are they? And courage, what do I have the courage to do? Do I have the courage to get up there and dance and twirl and have some fun? And then at the end, I kind of did my little dance again and people got up and danced. They twirled with me. And it ended up being something that could have been a real, it could have been a disaster in a way. It ended up being one of the most special moments of my speaking career, because it was just beautiful. And
There's so many gifts in that. I mean, I love that story so much. Thank you so much for sharing it, because there's such a valuable lesson too in being flexible as a speaker and reading the room and having that courage, that creativity in the moment. I love that when someone asks you, what are you going to do? You're like, I'm going to figure it out as I get up there. And even when you're on stage, you're like, as I'm twirling, I'm still like, what am I going to do? Voice, and you just went with it. You trusted yourself. You trusted your ability. You're mirroring like the energy of what's already there instead of killing it. Like imagine if you just did go with the PowerPoint on the tiny screen, you would have killed all that energy. No one's going to be able to understand, pay
my
attention.
gosh.
So instead you fed into it. Not only that, you elevated it in a way that was not only probably, a memory for you, like you said, one of your favorite experiences, but for perhaps for them too. They probably remember that crazy white dude that was twirling around on the stage, but we had so much fun and our kids learned what it feels like to have a voice, empower it, be
Yeah.
part of something like
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
It's
Oh, thank you
beautiful.
for
Thank you
that.
so
Yeah,
much.
I just
Yeah.
think I appreciate that. And you just said something too I just want to reiterate. As speakers, the biggest besides serving the audience that we are there for, but the another big gift that we can give are the people who put on the event, asking them, how can I help you? How can I support you? How could I make this even better? Or how can I make it work for you if it is kind of going off rails, as a lot of events do? And speakers can get in their little box. Well, okay, I've got to, and I've seen it. I've seen the behavior, I've seen the reaction. I'm always like, what do you need? What do you need me to do? Oh my God, Paul, can you cut your thing by 15 minutes and can you do something else? And It's like, got it. I'm there. I'm doing it. And they just like, things happen in life. Things happen in like, and to be able to just give yourself to them and know that you can accomplish anything and you are helping them as well and you're helping them build this beautiful community that everyone will then benefit from, is just a wonderful gift. And I think I'd love to see more speakers do that.
Yeah, that
um
adaptability, that
yeah,
flexibility.
yeah.
I mean, I've seen speakers, it doesn't matter. There could be an earthquake or we lose power. I know they would stick to the
Yeah,
script,
exactly.
just go, not acknowledge like what is going on, what this new situation is, or what I've been asked to
Right.
do. Because, like you said, we're serving them.
Yeah.
So we need to be flexible, adapt. And I've had it go sideways too, like in the where I made the wrong choice, like not adapting to the room when I was doing stand up once, because I knew my set killed at this theater with that audience. So I'm like, I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to kill. But it was like a little
Ah.
nightclub kind of scene. Everybody's eating. It's a totally different vibe. And I got
Yeah.
up there and I'm like doing my set, and no one is like, I'm not talking to them. I'm not acknowledging that
Oh,
difference.
yeah.
So I wish I'd had that lesson, but I kind of needed to learn it like
We
the
have to
hard way.
learn it.
And I didn't have the courage and the curiosity yet. I was new. And I'm like, oh, this went well. I've memorized it. I'm going to do it again. It's going to have the exact same outcome. So, you got to be flexible. But Paul, before we go, tell us, please, where we can find your book, where our listeners can
Oh.
follow you, find your book. What do you have upcoming? We can, look towards, and, you're just going to have so many fans. I'm such
Oh,
a
you're
fan.
so
And you got to
oh.
follow Paul at least on LinkedIn, because I love the videos and the insight and the wisdom that you do. It's just always above and beyond. But where else? Like,
So you can,
tell us all the
yeah, you
things.
can go to, my website's kind of like what our, tends to be our online home, right? Our nest. So Paul N as in Neil Larsen, LARSEN.com. And there you can find, all of my social homes, all of the links. I do these coaching moments that you just so wonderfully and eloquently talked about. They're like 90-second to 2-minute little things I just do around helping people with a nugget that in life that I've learned from other people and so forth. Those are all on there. Now I've got some fun stuff. I think I'm going to be doing mastermind groups coming up, for coaches. Got some other fun things planned for the summer, I
Mm.
think, that
Yes,
we're going to be,
yes, for
for
sure,
sure.
for
So
sure.
so keep an eye on everything, and again, some things will happen, some things may not. You never know what happens, but I'm always out there. What I always love is people to just, if they want to just email me, if they want to send me a note on LinkedIn, on Facebook Business, on any of the other platforms that I'm on, I'm Insta on and so forth. Just say hi. I'm always there. And I'm always willing to meet with people too. We have all, everyone has their own kind of discovery calls. I just love to chat with people. And I'm happy to kind of listen to folks and say, here's my recommendation for you to go out and do something right now. It doesn't require any kind of buying of a coaching package or buying anything. It's like, hey, here's my thoughts for you right now. Because that's what's helped me. It's like facing it till you make it. So
Yeah, take that first step.
take that first step. Go out and do that. We may
Yeah.
never meet again. We may never talk again. But here's what I would recommend for you to do, going
Mm,
forward. So I love all of that. So I'm available on all
such
of
a
those
gift.
things, and don't hesitate to reach out to me and just say hi.
Oh, thank you, Paul. That is such a gift. This has been like amazing. Thank you. Mahalo
Laura,
for your
mahalo.
humor, insights, straight up wisdom, all the stories. This has like just been above and beyond for me. I'm so
Laura,
grateful that you get to be here. I know. So many things to look forward to. And thank you for our listeners.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Public Speaking Horror Show. And look forward to seeing you around the bend on the next one. Thank you, Paul.